of them saying she wasn't going to be able to make it. And I don't know where the other people are.
I bet you they think it's 10, Di.
Maybe. Never thought of that.
Yeah, because if you wouldn't have told me, I would have thought it was 10.
Oh, okay. So it's a good thing then. So anyway, we will have the recording because it is recording. I didn't forget to do that. So we will just enjoy the three of us today. Okay?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have anything that they want to show or talk about?
No, not today.
Not today. Okay. Well, then we'll get to this because I'm going to have probably a little bit more sewing to do today because I really was supposed to sew yesterday, but I didn't get to it. So I didn't get the preliminary sewing done. So
we forgive you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Di, what book is this from?
All right. I'm going to turn the camera around. This is.
I love it.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's here. It's not sewn together. Whoops. Why does it keep doing that? Okay. Come down here. Okay. It's not sewn together, but this is what it's going to look like. Okay.
What book is it from, Di?
All right. This is from the one that we used last month.
Okay.
It's the one where they're sitting on the dock with their feet in the water. It's volume 8, issue 4 from 2021.
Got it.
Okay. The name of the block is on the page before, of course. Okay, there. It's Memories from Quilttown, USA. Where is it? Right here. Is that the name of it? I guess it's Memories from Mother's Choice Remake Quilt. Okay, and it's on the picture starts on page 36, the writing starts on page 37. So it's it's a very old-fashioned looking block, except for if you do it in more modern fabrics, it looks that way. Now, if you do the quilt, all of the blocks can be totally different. So for a very scrappy look, okay, you can also do it where your blocks are all the same. And that produces a secondary pattern then if you do that. But if you look at the picture right here, this is just your old-fashioned scrappy quilt where everything is different. And it only takes small pieces. All of the pieces for this block are either 2.5 or 4.5. So there's lots of 2.5s, mostly 2.5s. And so if you just have small scraps of things left, it works up really well for that because you only need small pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you what you're going to need to make one block. And then we'll pick those out and we'll put them together.
Okay.
Okay? For the center, right here, this piece right here. In the center, you need 1 4.5-inch square. Okay, then we have these, which are called the chevron units. Okay, here. For those, you need your print. You need a 2.5-inch strip. In the background, you need a 2.5-inch strip. Okay. Now from the print and the background, your cuts are going to be exactly the same. Okay. For these chevron units, out of each of those 2.5-inch strips, you're going to need 8 2.5-inch squares. and 4 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles.
You do that from each strip.
Each strip, correct. Because what they'll end up being when you put these together, they're flying geese blocks. One of them will have the print for the background and the background for the main part and the background fabric for the sky up here.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is just the opposite. For your main fabric will be the background and your print fabric is going to be the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just two opposite flying geese blocks put together to make that chevron block. And that's good to know for other things besides just this, okay? Because you can produce other blocks by putting chevron blocks together. You can produce something that looks like that with the zigzag. Okay, you can do something like this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, for a border. Looks really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, you can put them together this way so that they make the chevrons like that. But it also makes, if you put a background square in the center here, it would be a frame. And you can frame any kind of fabric in there, something that you wanted to highlight, fussy cut. Okay, you can also take and make them go this way. Okay, and it's almost like star points. Okay, so there's a lot that you can do with these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these are the chevron blocks. Okay, so those are going to go, put those back together and they point upwards this way. Okay, with that in the middle. Okay, so far we've got the center block, we've got the chevron blocks, and then we have to make the corner blocks. Okay, the corner blocks are something like this. And for the corner units, you're going to need 12 2.5-inch squares of the background. So you cut those out of one 2.5-inch strip. So one 2.5-inch strip for the background. And one 2.5-inch strip of print number 2. And then out of those 2.5-inch strips for the background, you need 12 2.5-inch squares. And out of your print number 2, you need 4 2.5-inch squares. And 4 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. Okay, let me know if you need me to repeat any of that.
No, I think I'm good.
I think I'm good too.
All right. Oh, I got one other person. Let me let them in. Okay. And Sarah is connected. There's Sarah. Good morning, Sarah. There she is. Good morning.
Good morning
Happy day after Thanksgiving.
to you also. I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving.
We had a really, really, really nice Thanksgiving.
Good.
It was just pleasant. The food was good. The company was good. It was small, but that's okay. in these times, at least having some family there is excellent.
Absolutely.
So,
And
So we were-
small and quiet is always good.
yeah, it was good. It was, you know, with the kids there, it's not totally quiet. But it was fun quiet, you know,
Good.
that you know, they had fun, but it wasn't anything that was bad. It was good. It was good noise.
Good.
So we were talking about This Is the Block. Okay. And we talked about that this is the book that it's from. It's from volume 8, issue 4, 2021, the same book that we used last month. And the block that we're doing, the picture starts on page 36, the writing starts on 37, and the pattern itself starts on 38. And it's called Mother's Choice Remake Quilt. And so this is what it's going to look like. And I talked about the pieces that you need for this. You can pick them up from the recording, or I'll also talk about it when I start to put it together. Okay? Okay, now for these, of course, I started out by cutting my 4.5-inch square. So out of the new ones, this is a 4.5-inch square that I had left over from another project. And it was a very modern piece of fabric, but it's a profile of a face. If you look at it, some people don't see that, but that's actually what it is. So that's going to be my center square of my new one. Okay, and then we're going to make the chevron units. So I'm going to put this aside, okay, for now. And my center square, and then this again is the chevron unit are 2 mirror image flying geese blocks that we put together to make that chevron unit. Okay, so for that I am using this white and black and this white and black. Okay, so for the rectangle parts, we've got 4 2.5-inch rectangles of each one. And then with that, we have 8 2.5-inch squares. And this one has 8 2.5-inch of the background squares. Okay, now to make the flying geese units, okay, when I did the sample block, you take all of your squares, and on the wrong side of the square, let me make sure I have the wrong sides. Okay, on the wrong side of the square, where's my God, we got a fly in here. Okay, I used my marking pen, and I drew the line on all the squares. Okay, then just like so. Okay, drawing the line. Okay, so you would mark all 8 of the background squares and all 8 of the print number 1 squares. Okay, which is a tried and true method of doing that. You've got a line, it's easy to see, you can sew on the line. But if you are in this one, if you're in a little bit of a hurry, this is like 8 and 8, that's 16, and then you have to do 8 for the outside. So that's 24 squares you have to mark. Okay, so for this, just to save some time and energy, we're going to use one of the angle tools. Now, the first angle tool that came out was called the Angler. That came out about 25 years ago. It was a very simple angle tool. I had it in my possession for quite a few years and never used it. I got it because somebody said I should have it. And of course, if somebody says I should have a gadget, then I probably am going to get it. But I never used it because I really wasn't quite sure what to do with it or how to use it. Okay. Then I did a quilt that had about 1,000 half square triangles in it, and decided that maybe it was time I learned how to use it, because it's good for making half square triangles. It's good for making things like folded corners, which is what we're doing with all the blocks here. So you can do that without having to mark all your squares. Okay, they've come out, different companies have come out with variations on it. The newest one, and I know that there's people that have not seen it. So if you haven't seen it, if you've seen it, it's a refresher. If you haven't seen it, okay, you want to, make note of it, because you might want to use this. This is the new one. It's called What's My Angle Tool. Okay, it's from Frog Howl Designs, who make a lot of notions. And the really cool thing about this one is that they give you 2 of them in one package. Okay, they give you a full-size one for your home machine, and because you don't usually lug around a great big machine, you have a smaller one. They give you a smaller one for your travel machine. Okay,
Wow.
So you get 2 for the price of 1.
That's nice.
Okay.
That's
I
cool.
am going to show you how to install it and use it. Okay, it's very simple to use. And it's pretty simple to install too. So, this actually is the size of the small one. I don't know if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the large one right here.
Oh.
Okay, so let me, there we go. This is the large one, and it looks like that. This is called a key, and we use that key for setting this up on your machine. It gets taped to the bed of your machine, and they tell you to cut this out on the solid lines around the angle tool, and then they have you cut out this dotted line. So this centerpiece is the key, and that's how we set the whole thing up, so it's in the proper position. Okay, we're going to come over to the machine, and okay, I think you can, there we go. I think that's a pretty good visual. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is we're going to, and I usually, when I set this up, I take my presser foot off the machine, just because it's easier to see this little hole in the key. Okay, I don't know if you can see that there's a little round circle there. That is, we position that because that's where the needle is going to go. So I'm going to place this over. Now I have my single stitch plate on, so this makes it really easy, because I would place this over that hole where the needle is going to come down. Okay, if you have your regular stitch plate on it, position it below where the needle is coming down, and lower the needle into the center of that hole, just like that. Okay, now the key, the needle is in the hole of the key, but you have to make sure that the key is straight and not angled a little bit. And in this case, I'm going to take it and make sure the edges of my key are either on one of the lines on my stitch plate or parallel to those lines. Okay, so now that I have the key there, I'm going to bring this up, and I need to put my presser foot on, because I want the presser foot on there to hold this key down while I'm setting up the rest. Okay, so my presser foot is on. I am putting the needle back down in that hole. Okay, and I'm going to lower my presser foot. Okay, and make sure still that that key is not at an angle, that it's straight on. Okay, after you have that set up, you're going to take the rest of the angle tool and you're going to place it back around the key the way it was before you cut it. Okay, so it's on like that. If you have a tray on that has markings, you'll see that the center marking and the other markings on either side, which are 1/4 of an inch, are over those lines on your tray. That's a double check. And then I'm going to take some tape. Regular Scotch tape works just fine. Okay, and I'm just going to place the tape on the sides, okay, of my tool. Okay, you can also place one in the front if you need to. Okay, you can place one up here. You can also place them in the back, but just don't place them over where the key is. Place them on either side back here, because you're going to remove the key before you start stitching. Okay, so now I can raise my needle. Okay, raise my foot, raise my needle. Okay, and take the key out. Okay, I don't need the key anymore. Now, the trick, so that you can use this again, take it off and use it again, is to not lose your little key. Okay, so they say, and the directions, you can tape it to the side of the machine, so it's there until you take your tool off. Okay, you can also take it in, like all of the Notion things like that, they come in a little Ziploc bag. Okay, I will take it and tape it to the bag, because I put the thing back with the directions back in the bag again. Either way, so that you keep track of that key and don't lose it. Okay? So now that we have it on, there's two different ways that you can use this. Okay? You can make half square triangles where we take 2 squares, put them together, and sew either side of center. To do that, you're going to use the lines that are 1/4 of an inch away from center. If you're doing folded corners like we are with the flying geese block, or to do a snowball block or any kind of folded corner like that, like we are going to do for our corner piece here, then you use the line that's in the center, and that will sew down diagonally from corner to corner. Okay, so far are you following me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I am going to take this foot off, because I just had that on to hold the key, and I'm going to put my walking foot on, because I would rather piece with my walking foot. Okay, get my thread out underneath there. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our pieces here. So I should have, again, 4 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles of my print, and 4 of my background, and then I have 8 background squares and 8 print squares. I'm going to take my print, and I'm just going to show you how this works, because you can see I use the one that I drew the line on. You're going to position the square on your rectangle just the way you would if you were sewing on the line, like that. Okay, so that the top, the one side, the bottom are all lined up. And then you take your piece, and we're going to use the points of this square, okay, to guide this up so that it stitches in the middle. Okay, so I've got the side of my square up here lined up with one of these diagonal lines on the tool. Okay, so I'm going to line this edge up with that diagonal line on the tool right here, and I'm going to place the point of my square on the center line at the bottom. Okay, right there. Okay, and we're going to lower our presser foot, and we're going to stitch up, me to tell it I have my walking stick on. There you are. Okay, now it's happy. Okay, so now I'm just going to, okay, and what I'm doing when I'm stitching is I'm keeping this point of the square right on that center line. All the way up. Okay, I'm going to take my next rectangle and my next square. Okay, make sure the pieces are right sides together. Okay, the top, the one side, and the bottom are lined up. Place it so that the edge, okay, of my square and my rectangle are on the diagonal line on the side. The point is on the center line. Bring it up, keeping that point right on that line. Okay, and another one.
So you don't have to draw the lines anymore.
You do not have to draw the lines when you do this.
Woo!
So it depends. I mean, if you're doing, you know, a couple that, you know, sometimes you don't need to put, you know, the tool on to do a couple,
Right.
But if you got to do a bunch of them, and besides being all that, it's a beautiful 1/4 inch mark for you to follow when you're sewing and need to do a 1/4 inch seam.
Right, yeah.
That tool seems a little more sturdy than the original one. The original one was so flimsy.
This one is, I like it a lot, but it's like anything, you know, within 25 years,
Right.
they make modifications, and they improve things.
Do you have them in the store, Di?
We do. I think, I was just talking about them to somebody, and there might only be one left here right now. There might be more over at East Aurora. I'm not sure, but they're wonderful. They're called What's My Angle tool.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so now I'm going to do these, which are just the opposite. They are the dark squares on the light background. Okay, and I'm just going to do a couple. I'm not going to probably get the whole thing put together because we only have that hour. But you get the idea. But it gives you the same precision as if you were marking your pieces.
Right.
Okay, and you'll notice you don't have to pin. I mean, you can pin if you want to. I would never tell somebody to not pin if they wanted to, because when I was first starting out, and I would pin absolutely everything, and people would tell me, you don't have to pin everything. Well, I did at that stage. I felt more confident if I was pinning, and gradually, as I got more and more experienced, I found that there were times when I didn't have to pin and times when I did have to pin.
Right.
So you do whatever is comfortable for you. Okay. And again, make sure that you've got, you know, it's not too difficult for your print fabrics to see the right and left side. But when I put that other sample together, I got all finished and one of the background blocks was wrong side up. And so you have to take it out. Okay, so all I did was just throw those through and chain them all. Okay, now I'm going to raise my presser foot. I'm going to cut, okay, between them. going to press a couple just because you don't need all of them. So that's what they look like. Okay, with their line, and you can see, hopefully you can see if I change this just a little bit. You might be able to see it on this one better, one with the dark square. But you can see that that line is stitched right from point to point. Oh, no, you can't see that. Now you can see that. Okay, so it does line up. There's another one. So it's just as if you drew that line on there. It's going right from point to point. Okay, so then we're going to take these, and I'm going to do one of each right now. Okay, we're going to take and we're going to press so that the block that we stitched here, okay, and we're going to take it, we're going to set our seam, and then we're going to take this and we're going to fold this up and press it like so. Okay, so I'm going to do, just so we can do this, one of my white on black and one of the black on the white. So I have to go over to my ironing board, which is next to me here. So if anybody has any questions, I can hear you. Not too far away. And again, always remember to set your seam first by putting the iron on that line of stitching you just did. Okay, all right, so we're going to come back over here. Okay, so there's my one, my black on the white. There's the white on the black. Okay, I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to fold this back down the way it was before I pressed it. I'm going to put the 1/4 inch line of the ruler. And if you guys don't have this ruler, you should have it. Okay, it is my go-to ruler that I use all of the time. Okay, it is called, it's Creative Grids Quick Trim and Circle Ruler. Okay, you're able to make circles with this up to, I think, 20, 24 inch, 25 inch circles. Okay, with these holes in the middle. We talked about that. And I'm sure I'll be demonstrating it again if you haven't seen it. But it also has, if you go to cut off this seam allowance to 1/4 inch, a lot of the rulers where the 1/4 inch line is, either the number is on top of that 1/4 inch line, or it's just a little line every so often. This one, on both sides, on this side and this side, they have a black dotted line for your 1/4 inch. So that when I do this and I go to cut, that line is continuous from corner to corner. Okay, and you can see it to put it on your line of stitching and trim it off. Okay, like so. The other thing this ruler has that I absolutely love, okay, is on, and maybe you can see that. Yeah, on this side, okay, it has a white dotted line all the way down. And that line is a 3/8 inch line. Okay, and it's crazy the number of times you have to use 3/8 of an inch. And it's very difficult to see on other rulers. Also, it's like 3.5 inches wide by 12.5 inches long, so it's a maneuverable ruler. As I say, this is my go-to ruler, unless I have to have a great big, long ruler, because it's easy to handle. It has beautiful markings on it, and it's just worthwhile looking into. And besides, it makes circles. So I just wanted to tell you about that because I love that ruler, and people are always asking me, what's that ruler that you use? And this is it. So I can put that 1/4 inch line right down my seam line, cut off the excess. Now, if you're so inclined and have lots of time, each one of these pieces you cut off, black on white or white on black is identical. You're going to have 8 more from the corner units, and you can make little half square triangles out of them. So if you have the time or the inclination, they'll make really cool little half square triangles. I save mine, and I'm always going to do something, but I never have the time to do it. So now I have my rectangles have corner units on them. Okay, I'm going to take and I'm going to repeat that on the other side. So I'm going to sew another black one here, another white one here, and I'm going to do that as soon as I find the squares right here. Okay, there's a black one, there's a white one. I am going to place this on the other end. Again, right sides together, matching up the bottom, the top, and the side. And they will overlap. Okay, sometimes people get nervous about that the point doesn't come to the point. They will overlap so that when you open them up, okay, you have this area here that's 1/4 inch so that you can sew the next piece to it and not cut off your point. Okay, so this one's going to go here, and this one right side down is going to go right here, lining that up, and then I'm going to stitch. And it's always, I don't know whether you noticed, and I forgot to mention, but I'll mention it now, is when you stitch, start from here and stitch down to the corner. Okay, if you stitch from the corner, there's always the chance that it's going to, even with a single stitch plate on and everything, sometimes it can eat that corner up because it's 2 bias edges. Okay, whereas if you start up here, you have 1 bias edge in my corner here, but this is a straight of grain edge. Okay, so it's not going to eat it up like starting from down in the corner. Okay, so we're going to bring the camera back. There we go. Okay, start here. And again, now I'm going to line up the edge with this parallel line right on the side there. Bring it up so that my point is on the center line. Press the foot. That one, and then we're going to do the white one on the black, matching things up. Okay, my threads, I'm going to cut them apart. And then I'm going to go over to the ironing board and I'm going to press up the other side. So now we have, okay, our 2 flying geese blocks. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side, fold that corner back down again, place my 1/4 inch line on my seam allowance, and trim off the corner. Okay, and there's 1 flying geese block that looks like that. Looks like that. Okay, now I'm going to take it, I'm going to sew these together Okay, so that's the white background one is on the bottom. Okay, this would make a white chevron if I did it that way, but we want a print chevron. So it's going to look like that. So I'm going to take and fold this down normally, okay, and I would sew here, okay, but it's easier when I sew this to make sure everything is coming out right if I turn it this way and sew, okay, because I can see on here, okay, where those seams crossed. So that's, I want to make sure that I'm lining that up, and that's where my stitch is going to go when I sew these two blocks together. Okay, so we're going to go back to the machine. And now I'm going to use, see my 3 lines here. Good morning, Olivia. These are my 3 lines. Now I've been using the center line. Now I'm going to use this one out here. It says HST, and that means it's for making half square triangles, but it's also the 1/4 inch mark for your seam. Okay, so I'm going to put my 2 rectangles together. I'm going to line up my edge, okay, with the line that's on my tool. Okay, and I'm going to sew my 1/4 inch seam, keeping the edge on that line. Okay, so there's my seam. Okay, and I'm going to open this up. And there's my chevron block. Okay, I'm going to go over and press it. Now, when you press it, you want to press it toward this rectangle because there's a lot of seams down in here. If I press it this way, that's going to get really bulky. So we're going to press this so that that seam is going upward. Okay, so there. Okay, there's my chevron block. Okay, and this is what you're going to look for when you construct these blocks to make sure that they match up when you put your whole unit together. Okay, we're looking where we're not cutting off our point right here. Okay, and then you're going to look here and here and up here to make sure that you have a 1/4 inch from where the line comes down to the edge. Where the edge of that triangle comes down to the edge of the block, the same thing up here, so that when we do sew these into, okay, the adjoining blocks, that it's going to come right to the point of the triangle, so we're not cutting the point off, and the same thing up here, so that we're not cutting the point off. You should be coming down into the corner, okay, you should have a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch, and a 1/4 inch, and you should be able to see your point. Okay, so far so good?
Yep.
Yep.
Any questions?
No.
Yep.
Okay, so that's our chevron unit for the second block. Okay, so this is for the first block. And what I did with the second block, where I had the lighter of the prints, I made the chevron unit. In this one, I made the darker of the prints, the 2 prints, the chevron unit, and then the lighter one for the corner blocks, where this one had the darker one for the corner blocks. Okay, so far that is, this is my center, and this is what the chevron is going to look like around there. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, so now we need to construct the corner unit. And we're going to make 4 of these. I'm just going to make 1 again to save time. But for the corner unit, we have 4 of our print number 2, 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. Okay, we have 4 of our 2.5 inch squares. And there's the last one. And we have 8 or 12 of the 2.5 inch background squares. Okay, so to complete this corner unit, we're going to take a print 2.5 inch square, and we're going to sew it to a background 2.5 inch square, so it looks like that.
Is it almost there? No, I'm just right here.
Yes?
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Just wanna make sure.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to put those 2 together, and I'm going to sew those with a 1/4 inch seam. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to sew it without moving the camera because I think you've seen me sew enough. Just a little seam. Okay, again, I use the lines on that little tool. Okay, there's my 1/4 inch seam right here. And I'm going to take and press that. It doesn't really have a particular way you need to press it, so we'll press it toward the darker of the 2 fabrics. It doesn't have an opposing seam anywhere, so it doesn't matter. You could press it either way. And in that case, I usually use the darker fabric to press it toward. Okay, so for my background unit, okay, I now have a piece that looks like that. Okay, we're going to take one of our rectangles, okay, and we're going to sew it to the bottom of our piece, so it looks like that. I'm going to place this on here. I will turn this one over and sew from this side also, because if I sew from this side, it prevents the seam usually from getting turned under. Because as careful as we are, sometimes it turns and it's going one way, and it gets sewn and it crosses. It's not a huge deal, but if we can keep it flatter, that's for the best. So I'm going to sew it this way. And again, I'm just going to go down and sew a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so there's my 1/4 inch seam that I sewed right down here. And now I'm going to press this, okay, and I will press it toward this block because this has no seams in it. If I pressed it toward these blocks, I would be doubling that seam. Oh, again, pressing toward the block that has the least amount of seams, if possible. Okay, so now my corner unit looks like that. Okay, so now to make this into our corner unit that for the original block looks like this. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do our folded corners again. So I'm going to take 2 of my background squares, okay, like so. I am going to place 1 on this corner, like that, and I'm going to sew from point to point here, and I'm going to place this one on the opposite corner, like that, and I'm going to sew from here to here. Okay, so again, I'm going to use that tool. So there's my one. Okay, again, I'm going to line this up with the diagonal line here. Bring it up so that my point down at the bottom is on that center line. And then just foul that up. The point on the center line. And I'm going to turn it around. And going down here. And do the same thing. Okay. All right, so now the glass looks like that. I'm going to go to the ironing board and I'm going to press this open. And I'm going to press that open. Okay, so now my corner unit looks like this. And the excess threads. And then we're going to trim edges off here.
December 7th from 10 to 1, and it will be for so long, and we'll give away.
Here. Okay, you got some more triangles. Okay, and there you go. There's your corner unit. And for this one, this will go like that. And the corner units will go on like, whoops, can't see that. Okay, we'll go on like that. And then we'll add the other ones and then we'll sew those together. Okay, so.
That looks more complicated than it really was.
It isn't it though? It's as I say, the one really thing I liked about this is everything is made out of a 2.5-inch strip except for the center block. And these are all cut 2.5 by 4.5. Your center's cut 4.5 inches square. So you only have to remember those two measurements. And it's just folded corners. And again, if you don't have to mark everything, and you can see how nicely it comes out. Okay, my ends aren't cut off here. I've got my 1/4 of an inch here, and I've got my 1/4 of an inch there. Okay, so again, that was the second one. I think Sarah was not here to see the first one, but the corner units will go like that. Okay, and your chevron units will go in between them. Oh, and then your center square will go in the middle, like so. Okay?
Nice.
Any questions?
No?
No,
No? Well, everybody have a wonderful day then. Have a wonderful weekend. And recover from your Thanksgiving. I know, like everybody, probably ate too much, but it was so good. And if I don't see you before, some of you I won't. I will see you next month in December in December. I guess I will go get ready for my afternoon class so that I can get out of here on time so I can go get my puppy.
we're excited for you, Di.
Thank you. I will send pictures.
You better. Okay.
All right. So,
Bye.
Thank you.
bye, everybody. Have
Bye.
a wonderful weekend.
Have a
Okay, thank you
great
for
day.
coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Diane.
Bye, Sarah.